Welcome, everyone, to our second session of our Fall Future Leaders. Today, we've got a fantastic speaker with us, Kathleen Owings out of Colorado Springs, and she's going to talk a little bit about her journey and also, kind of a little bit of her college story as well, so you can relate to that, or maybe not Kathleen's story exactly.
A little bit. I'll try and relate.
pretty.
It's been a
top
few
tier.
years, decades, a little bit older.
Yes, exactly. So
Don't
Kathleen,
agree so quickly.
I will turn it over to you and just let me know when you need me to advance the slide.
Hey, thanks, Emily. And thanks, everyone. Grayson, thanks for being here from Italy. And those of you that are going to watch virtually, you're always welcome to reach out to me. You can go to the next slide so I stop staring at my face there on the cover. And Grayson, you're welcome at any time. I mean, it's just you, me, and Emily, but anytime you're welcome to ask questions or chime in. I prefer the interaction because if you do these presentations when you're just talking to your computer screen, it feels like you're just talking to yourself. So feel free to ask any questions, chime in. You're not going to break my flow. I'm happy to talk. So as Emily said, what we're going to talk about today is my journey. I'll start from college. As I said, it's few decades ago, 2023 to be exact. So you can do the math on my age, but still remember it really well. And also the path. So from school and then the path of getting into this career in financial services. So I'll talk about all of those. And then this is my 15th year in the business. So I like to share with you just kind of lessons I've learned over the years and what I found has been helpful in my success and what's helped me stay in the business now for 15 years. And then certainly open up to any questions or have conversations along the way. So next slide, Emily. Okay, so here's my journey. I was a really weird kid. And at the age of 14, I grew up in New York originally. Let me start. I'm not going to go from birth, but originally from New York. As Emily said, I'm here in Colorado. And what you see there is how I came to Colorado. So at 14 years old, I was living in New York, outside of New York City. I was living near West Point, which is the military academy there. And I had a cousin who was going. We visited him for a day. And I thought, oh my God, this is so cool. I want to do this. So that is the only school I wanted to go to. That's all I worked through high school to get to. I played soccer. I played volleyball. I did all the things you need to do. And I did get it admitted into West Point. It was actually the only school I applied to. My backup school was Penn State because my best friend was going to go there. So I didn't really have the best backup plan. It was plan A and that was it. What's interesting is, so on the left-hand side there, that's my graduation photo. In the middle there, that's my commissioning. And to my right, our left in the picture, that is Vice President Gore, Al Gore. He invented the internet, as we all know. And Vice President Gore actually nominated me to go to West Point. What's interesting is you have various levels to get nominations. I did not get any from my congressman or senator. So I had to go kind of an alternative route. And ironically, the year I graduated, he was also our speaker. So my dad, who's pinning on my bar and my our right there, reached out to his office and said, hey, would you pin on my daughter who you nominated? And he did, which is pretty cool. And then I met my husband there. Mike and I both served in the Army. He was a helicopter pilot and I was a Corps of Engineer officer. That picture there on the far right is the two of us that's actually Kuwait in 2003. At that time, that's when the war was going on. We were both there in the, they called it Operation Iraqi Freedom. We were both stationed there at the same time in the war zone, same time. We saw each other a few times, maybe 2 or 3 times during a 6-month span, but we were both deployed there in a combat zone at the same time. So very different backgrounds. What's interesting is I do get the question a lot is like, how did you get into this job? And a lot of what I did in the Army has helped tremendously in financial services. One is planning. I was an engineer officer. And just being an officer, you have to be really good at planning. So that's helped a lot in my career. And crisis management, quite frankly, has been the best thing I've had to deal with. I mean, being in a war zone, people get a little freaked out and impatient and kind of lose their minds sometimes. So that happens with people in their accounts and the markets. So I've been very blessed to have that experience to kind of know how people might react in high crisis situations and how to deal with it appropriately. So the background actually fits really well for what I'm doing now. And, it's been a great fit. What I have done since then, being in the financial services, I talk about it there on the screen, is getting involved in the industry and then also in my community. I think that's really important, not just living in the world of being an advisor, but looking outside myself. So one thing, I'm on this call with you guys here today, doing this Zoom. I'm very involved with NAIFA. I went through all the chairs in the state of Colorado, served as the state president for a year and a half, actually 2 years. And that was several years ago. I'm still on the Colorado board currently, and then I'll working on many national, as Emily knows. We were joking with each other earlier because we're on a lot of committees together. Emily knows my face well. And then being involved in the community, I think, is really important. Was very involved, and I still am involved with the library district here in Colorado. Our area, we're the second largest in the state. I served on the library board, which was an appointed position by elected officials. And then also now I'm on the foundation board. So I'm doing fundraising. So that's just kind of getting outside of my day-to-day. And I like that giving back, and the volunteering kind of gives me a break too from just the numbers and the planning. But I really do feel like it gives more of myself and more into my community. So next slide, Emily. So here are some of the benefits that I've enjoyed and that I do love about this career. One is flexibility. Now that's a double-edged sword, to be very honest. I joke I have the nicest boss and the meanest boss. That boss is me. I say nice because some days if I need to take off early to drive my daughter somewhere or take her to a doctor's appointment, I can. I'm also the meanest boss because I tend to be kind of hard on myself and probably work more than maybe I should. So it's a double-edged sword, kind of managing your own expectations and drive there. It is nice, as I said, you can have a nice blend in your life. Many times my husband and I, we have a 17-year-old daughter, and doctor's appointments, for example, you don't always have the best flexibility there. Many times the doctor's hours are 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Well, that's usually when we're at work. So I'm able to work that into my schedule, which is really nice, but sometimes a little hard to juggle, but nice that I have the ability to do that. Stuff like this today. I'm in my home office right now. I'm going to go back to my office downtown after this, but I have this flexibility in my schedule, which is really nice. It's different than that 9-to-5 job. Upside in your income. One of the frustrating things in the Army was everyone at my rank was making the same thing. Now you would get promotions, but really you're all kind of making the same thing, whether you're at the top of the heap, so to speak, or the bottom. That was kind of frustrating to me. In this career, it's how hard are you willing to work and how much time you're going to put in is really the upside potential of your income. And it is hard work. This is not easy. I remember when I first started, I would work weekends, I'd work late. And one of the older advisors, he said, I always know that people are going to stick it out because they're usually the last ones to turn the lights out. Now, that's not saying I'm not telling you to work insane hours, but what I'm saying is it does take a lot of hard work and effort, especially in the beginning when you're starting. And you have to think of it as a marathon. And I'll talk about that here. I can talk about that here in a little bit. I do have some pictures and slides later, but my husband and I are both runners. We do very long distances. My last race that I just did was a 35K. So that's 21 miles. I was out running for 5 hours. Some people can't do that because they're like, oh, I can't run for 5 hours. Well, you can. You just have to learn how to pace yourself. And I think this industry is the same way. It's not a sprint. I'm not hunting elephants looking for those big cases all the time. I know that it's about building relationships and sticking this thing out for the long haul. And it's paid off. I'm 15 years into it and it's certainly paid off, but it's taken me time and commitment to continue to do that. So I like to tell that to people. We're not microwave here in this business. I think a lot of folks, we have this microwave mentality sometimes where they want this overnight success, and it's I might look like an overnight success, but it's been, 15 years of overnight, which is a long time. There's great opportunities for recognition. And, I've been fortunate that I've been the recipient of that. So I was one of NAIFA's 4 under 40 several years ago, before I'm over 40 now. But, again, putting in that time, putting that effort, and having great people that support you, you're able to get that recognition. And then the last is making an impact. That's one thing I love to do. I think that service from the military still runs really deep. And that's why I continue to give back to NAIFA, support the organization. That picture there at the top, that is the US Capitol in Washington, D.C. I've been going to all of those congressional conferences, talking to our elected officials and their offices, which I think is really important. I mean, these are people like you and me, Grayson. They get elected to Congress. They may know nothing about, and probably know nothing about, our industry, yet they're voting on bills that impact our life and the lives of our clients. So that's why I go there every year, to talk to them, educate them, build those relationships, so that they're not just passing a bill, to take someone's words from many years ago, pass the bill, then we'll read it. We don't want that. We want them to understand what they're passing. And that lower right-hand picture there, that's my board from when I was on my library term, actually at the party when I came off. I was on that library board for 10 years. So with them for quite a long time, and loved it, quite frankly. Okay, Emily, next slide. So when you look at this career, it's so fascinating. There's so many different facets to what we do. And I'll pause here maybe for a moment before I dive into this and kind of talk about like my practice and how I'm structured. So I'm one of the owners of our company. We are with an independent broker dealer. So I am securities licensed. I have my 6, 63, 65, and 7. So I can do stocks. So I have all of those. And what we do is we do comprehensive financial planning for individuals and business owners. And then another component, we manage many times we're managing their assets as well. So their retirement accounts, their investment accounts. And then we also have a component, we do group benefits for small businesses. And then we also do insurance. We don't do property and casualty, and we don't do health insurance, because those, to me and to us, my partner and I, are its own animal. But what's cool about it is we've really built the structure of our company, and we have partners that we work with to then be able to refer our clients to someone who might need Medicare or property and casualty. So there's a lot of different ways that you can go in this industry. And I'm not sure which way you're thinking, Grayson. If you want to do more of the financial services, or you want to do property and casualty, I'm not sure. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yes, I don't know exactly. One thing that I'm really interested in is financial advising, but kind of a niche for special needs families.
Okay.
So
awesome.
I don't know if you guys work with special needs families at all, but I was actually going to raise my hand and ask that question for you.
We do not. That would be another area that is really specific, because the needs for insurance, or maybe making sure trusts are set up properly. I do know. So the company that I first worked with, and I was going to get into it here in a little bit, but the company I first worked with is called New England Financial. They were owned by MetLife. And they actually had a group in that company that worked on the special needs and with special needs families, because it is really specific planning. So I think that's great that you have, that thought, that idea of like, I want to do financial planning specifically with special needs kiddos and families, because that really is a very niche part of our business, and we don't do that.
Okay.
And
I think that's awesome.
There is actually a fairly new designation that's out that is to actually get certified in special needs planning. And I can't remember off the top of my head what that designation is, but I can look it up and I'll drop it in chat here, because we do have some members who have that. And so that would be a great opportunity, if that's something that you're interested in, connecting with those members who have that designation and who specialize in that, would really be a good jumpstart for you.
That'd be awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, I think it would. And then understanding, again, their business is going to look different, might look a little different than mine, because again, we're not working with those families. you would have different relationships too with attorneys. Even you would want to be finding attorneys that specialize in those types of trusts, for the families, and against making sure things are set up properly for the kids and beyond that. So I think it's great. Emily, you suggested maybe finding people, maybe when you come back from Italy, in your area. You could even, certainly, I know Emily could be a resource to find members that we have, but I think it'd be great for you to connect with them and just learn more about it.
Definitely.
So that, I think that does go well though into this slide here, is identifying your career needs. As you said, Grayson, you're looking at financial planning, and then you kind of niche that down even more to playing families with special needs. And that's where, when you do look at, after you graduate, when you look at the companies that you want to join, is do they have, or would they have those departments or those individuals that could help you on that journey to learn? You certainly wouldn't want to join one and find out, oh no, there's no one here that can help me. Maybe it's starting out looking for, Emily just put it in the chat there, looking for maybe a mentor who could help you with that. And then I think it's important, once you're there at that location, whatever company you select, maybe finding a study group to join. I know NAIFA just launched what's the new mentor linking site, Emily?
Mentor Loop.
Yes, thank you. So Mentor Loop would be a great one if you are looking for a mentor and don't know how to find one. Look at NAIFA's Mentor Loop. They just launched it, I think, within the last couple of weeks, where you can sign up as a mentor, as a mentee, and then they would have mentors that hopefully they would link you up with, and maybe you would find something there, Grayson. So the other thing I think is important when you're looking at companies when you first start. So when I first started in New England, they did have many of these things. There was training and development. I would actually meet with the other newbies that were in my class, so to speak. So we had training there. I mean, there's great groups like NAIFA that have classes. I mean, you could do classes. You don't want to do this because you won't make money, but you could do classes all day long and just learn. Of course, you need to be going out and meeting with people and selling. But I think it's important to look at the companies that'll provide that training and development. What kind of support do they have? As far as like maybe staff, do they help you with your paperwork? I mean, there's so many components to this industry. You don't always know what to ask until you get in. But that's why I also think the mentor is important, because you can kind of pick their brain on questions or things that maybe they wish they had when they first started, and they can impart that knowledge to you on their lessons learned. So you hit on it perfectly, Grayson. You're looking at maybe that specialization. You want to focus on general financial planning, but specializing in special needs. Most people don't have that or know, and I think that's okay. You can always start general and narrow it down from there as you learn more about the different areas you can get into, whether it be financial planning, property and casualty, etc. Designations I think are great. Emily just dropped that one in the chat. There's so many others. I have the LACP, Life and Annuity Certified Professional. There's a lot of different designations out there. I think you can always make that decision as you get further along in your career. If you do decide to go into a specific specialization, or maybe you just want to get a general one, there's so many others. CFP is a big one that most people know, but I think it's important maybe to look at continuing your education as you progress in your career, just kind of sharpening your saw, so to speak. It's nice to get help on your marketing and social media. Maybe the company you look to join does have that. Maybe they don't. And I would say most of the larger companies, if you're talking, just trying to think of some I've seen recently, like the New York Lifes. Like I said, where I started was owned by MetLife, which is now Mass Mutual. I know many of those larger insurance-based organizations, do have a lot of this in place, because they're looking to bring in and grow kind of that next generation, because we need that. I mean, I'm kind of in the middle now in my 40s, but as we know, the average age in this industry is about 57, mostly male. So we need not just the middle like me, but we need those newer agents coming in and helping them to grow. So starting to think about your marketing plan, social media, and asking about that, I think is important, and how you can be supported. And then the products you have that are going to support your market. Again, asking those companies, okay, I want to work with special needs families. Insurance is going to look a little different maybe than someone like, myself that doesn't have a special needs kid. So it's just making sure, again, that the company you're looking at might support you with the products that they have available. And then asking about the upside career opportunities. Maybe you just want to go in and stay as a producer and just work your way up that way, so to speak. That's really kind of one track. Maybe you get into it and realize you want to go management. I'll be quite honest with you. I came in as a producer. I probably could have gone to management. I didn't really want to manage. I did that in the Army. That was kind of my Army life and my Army time. I like meeting with clients. When I talk to people and they're trying to decide where to go and what to do, I always like to ask them, like, well, where do you find yourself get lost? Like, where time doesn't really matter anymore. For me, that's sitting in front of clients. I totally lose track of time. Now, I'm not keeping them in meetings for hours upon hours, but my point is I lose track of time, and I enjoy that time with the client and focusing on them and their needs. So that's where I know that's my happy place, and where I'm probably best serving is in those meetings with my clients. Management would not have been wasn't my happy place, because it just wasn't my thing. I mean, I could do it. I was good at it, but not where I kind of lose that track of time, if that makes sense. So why don't you go to the next slide now, Emily? Okay. So finding the right fit. So we talked about looking at, your career needs and what you're hoping to achieve. Let's talk about finding the right fit for a company that you want to explore and or join. So how I did it, I've been in Colorado Springs almost 20 years now. So let me give you kind of the interim careers I had between Army and here, because I had a couple. The first one, when I got out, I was a civil engineer. I worked on a job site, literally had hard hat and boots, telling like guys on doing concrete, asphalt, all that stuff, how to do it. Wasn't my happy place. Time did not go fast doing that, but it was a really great next career step. And then after that, I was a headhunter. Not quite my thing. But what's interesting is I went from W-2 employee to 1099 to 100% commission. So I knew I could do it. I wasn't a very good headhunter, to be honest. I actually quit because I thought they were going to fire me. I was not good. But my husband and I knew at that point, oh, we can survive when Kathleen's not making a lot, sadly. So I thought, okay, if I find the career, maybe it's commission-based. I know as long as I just make more than that, we're going to be fine, which I did. But finding the right fit. So what I did was, when I was looking at this industry and how I got into this, when I was a headhunter, a friend of mine, another headhunter, she was kind of listening to me kind of complain one day, to be very honest. And she said, I think you should be a financial advisor. You're good with math. You like numbers. You like people. You're fine with commission. And of course I joked, I'm like, yeah, I'm not making any money, so I'm good there. I actually cold called the managing director for New England in Colorado Springs. And I said, hey, I like to learn more about what you do. I think I might be a good fit. And I did interview at a couple other places after that, but that is ultimately where I ended up. And that's because they were doing more comprehensive planning and had a lot of different parts of the industry I was interested in. I talked to, it was Merrill Lynch at the time, now Bank of America, but I talked to Merrill and some others. I'm like, I don't want to just do the investments. I want to do more than that. So my point of that story is maybe start exploring in your area where you live. I mean, literally maybe Google financial service companies or financial planning companies. I mean, you can come up with any other Google terms you want to, and then maybe start there. I mean, another good resource is, reaching out to Emily, reaching out to myself and saying, hey, do you think you could help me somehow? My network of my NAIFA people, my NAIFA family is all across the country now. And I can go see all the members on the website, the members only website, and you can start cold calling people. That's literally what I did. And Dan, my manager, didn't hang up the phone and say, oh, click, why am I going to talk to you? I think it was probably one of the best days of his life, right? He's like, I'm getting a call from someone who's interested in this industry. Oh my gosh, how nice is that? People like myself, like if I ever got a call from someone like that, I would love to help them because I love what I do. I think it's a great industry and I would be totally open to do that. So don't be afraid. I tell my daughter, the answer is always no, unless you ask, right? It's no until you ask the person. So ask people for help, pick brains, do it early. I mean, you don't want to be waiting till right before graduation to say, oh crap, I'm graduating. Now I need to find a job. Start early. You know, you haven't graduated yet. That's okay. But start kind of collecting your information and that knowledge to understand where you may be going on that next step. Look for internship opportunities, you know, maybe over the summer, depending on where you are in your, you know, your college life, call someone up if you're interested and say, hey, could I be an intern over the summer? Again, answer is always no, unless you ask, or maybe they'll have them posted. So again, I think starting with those baby steps is a great way to kind of test drive different companies, so to speak. Many companies do have candidate assessments. I did mine when I first joined New England. They ask you a bunch of like personality questions, all these questions, and it really does give you an idea of you would be a good fit in the industry. Now, I don't know if that one would be 100% because I should find mine. It'd be funny to find it to see where I scored as far as like on the sales side. Like I don't find myself to be a really salesy person. I mean, I just want to help people understand their needs. And if I have the products or services that meet those needs, great. And if they buy, great. But I'm maybe not the salesiest person. That's bad to say, but I've been successful doing what I'm doing. So I'm okay, I guess. The other nice thing about talking to people is asking them what their day-to-day looks like. I think across this industry, it can be very different. I'm not captive, I'm independent. So my day is really my day. It's whatever I want it to be. If you maybe work for a more captive company, you know, maybe your day looks a little bit different. But I think that's important as you interview people, talk to them, just understanding what their day looks like. Asking again about, and I talked about this in the prior slide, asking about the support for marketing, business plans, if they'll be supporting you there and helping you create those. And then also it's important to know how you're going to get licensed. Now, when I was licensed, it was different now for you all. You all have the securities, I think it's called the SIE license. It's a different license than I took. I did my 6, 63, 65, 7. There's that new securities license that did not exist when I first came into the industry. But it's important to understand what it's going to take to do what licenses you'll need to do the job. I do give this piece of advice. One thing I wish I did was I took those 4 tests. I could have just done 2 and it would have knocked out those 4. Had I done the 7 and the 66, it would have been all 4, but I did 4. No one really tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, Kathleen, if you just do 2, you know, it's neither here nor there at this point in my life, because that's 15 years in the past. But I wish I'd maybe done a little more research, talk to some more people, say, hey, what do you recommend I do as far as licensing is concerned? Knowing I wanted to do the investments more comprehensive, could have knocked out those 2. So understanding the licenses. Go ahead, Emily.
Oh, I was just gonna throw in that because Grayson, I know that you are a NAIFA member, a student member, which is fantastic, that we actually have a program with WebCE where you get discounts on some of those pre-licensing courses. You know, so they're kind of like prep courses, study courses, to help you pass those licensure tests. So that's another great benefit of being a student member of NAIFA is being able to take advantage of you know, those discounts on those types of programs.
And I would absolutely say I always did test prep. There might have been one test I kind of did self-study, but I couldn't tell you which one. I always went to those classes at the time. They're really, I mean, this is 15 years ago, so the online stuff wasn't as prevalent, but absolutely look to do those classes because they will teach you how to take the test, if that makes sense. As we all know, think about like the SAT exams, all of those exams. It's really learning how to take the test, understand how they're asking the questions, and learning from those people that know these tests inside out. I thought, I'm not the smartest person in the room. Let me learn from someone who's an expert on that and hopefully pass in the first time. I did pass all of them except the 7. I had to take that stinker twice. But I think having those test preps and those courses was huge because it's just faster. You just knock it out and move on. And I wasn't looking to get 100%. Honestly, I'm like, okay, let me just pass this thing and move on. Because I think the passing on most of those is like 70%. It's not super high. And that's the key. No one's going to ask you, what'd you get on your series, whatever. They don't care. Just get the license and start working. So then the last piece there is this an established, do they have an established process to run a business? Again, when I started with New England, we were learning ways in which to structure our businesses, how to run it as far as client contact management, et cetera. That was really helpful because I didn't know what I didn't know. I didn't know how to create it, where to start. So I think, again, asking, will someone be helping me? And frankly, if you're new, maybe you're going into established practice and maybe you'll be starting out as a paraplanner or a junior advisor. That's where I started with my business partner. I was a junior advisor and I've worked my way up now to, be one of the partners with him. And that's kind of helped. It's a different mindset when you're kind of that employee junior versus being an owner. It's got its advantages and disadvantages. Again, I have the best boss and the worst boss. Remember that. So it's great, but just different pros and cons. So why don't you go ahead, Emily, to the next slide. So what will you need to succeed? So this was what I was talking about with the long distance running. So there's my husband and I. That is, it's a race called the Pikes Peak Ascent. It's a half marathon up Pikes Peak, which Pikes Peak is at 14,110 feet above sea level. You start at 7,000 feet. So you go out, you ascend 7,000 feet in however many hours it takes. There is a cutoff. My husband's fast. He's like 3.5 hours. I think I did mine in 5:20 this year. So he's Speedy Gonzalez and I've just moved my body. But it comes down to these things on that left-hand side for so much of it applies to this industry. It's, kind of a great asset, almost running and understanding the pros and cons and the ups and the downs, mental, physical, etc. I think passion is huge. If you don't, and Grayson, it sounds like you have, a place in your heart for special needs families, but having the passion for what I do is what keeps me in it. I mean, this is not an easy career. It's not even a job. It's not an easy calling. I will say that, but I love it because I have a passion for what I do. Yesterday, I'll give you a quick story. So yesterday I met with a woman whose husband just passed away 1 month ago. And I've known her husband and her the whole time I've been in the industry, 15 years. He was older. He was in his 80s and he had a progressive degenerative disease. So it was coming, but it's still really sad when it actually does occur. But working with her kind of after her spouse has passed has, it's rewarding to help people and walk with them through some of the hardest times in their life, knowing you're making an impact on their lives. And the impact in his case was he had insurance. He had all these things in place. And now his wife, who didn't always understand or pay attention to what was going on, now has to do it herself in her 80s. And she's realizing that what her husband set up is going to make her secure for life. And she never had that feeling, unfortunately. But fortunately, again, sitting with her, I was working on yesterday, things outside of my scope, to be quite honest. She didn't know about some credit cards I had. I was calling credit card companies with her yesterday to cancel them. We were checking on a death claim that we had going on. We were working on an IRA that is not through me, actually. It's through Fidelity, but Fidelity was not helping her. She is 84 years old and doesn't hear very well. So sometimes my job goes outside the scope of what I'm actually doing with and for clients, but that's the passion I have. It's necessary. She needs help on it. And her kids live out of state. So I think it's important to have that. Grit is huge. I mean, that, and I'll talk about on the next slide some of the books I recommend, but if you, there's a book called Grit. It's by Angela Duckworth. I love it. And it just talks about passion and perseverance. And it's not always the smartest person who's going to win is the people that have that tenacity and that grit to get up, sometimes overcome challenges. I was telling Emily, I did a presentation earlier this week. My Zoom totally crashed. 50 people on, like Zoom went boop, just shut me down, kicked me out. I was like, oh, crud. It was not pretty. It was not my prettiest presentation, but okay. I took a deep breath. I got back on that thing. The slides were working. I continued on. I went off of memory. It was only 20 minutes and I did it. I of course asked if I can come back. It was for NAIFA. But it was the grit to not, I could have just stayed. Honestly, I could have not gone back on. I could have been like, oh, wow, that was ugly. Let me just stay out of that one. Nah, I didn't. I went back in. Actually, they'd slightly moved on. I said, hey, I'm back. Can I finish? I have about 5 minutes. And he said, sure, go ahead. So I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad. Having integrity, that is so huge in this industry. And it just speaks volumes. I'm very honest with my clients. I'll give you one example of that. Like sometimes people ask me, what are you going to make on this? Sometimes I really don't know. I'll give you an example of what it is. Like maybe a simple IRA plan. I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to make. Like I could crunch the numbers real quick for you. I think unfortunately our business, because of people like Bernie Madoff or, those bad apples sometimes get, FTX, Bitcoin. You name it. I think our industry gets tainted by those bad apples, and it's the responsibility of the rest of us who are good people just trying to do a job, provide for the families and help others to uphold that integrity and, make sure we're doing the right thing for our clients and just being honest. I'm just honest with people, and that's what people appreciate and what they want. Self-discipline. Grayson, you mentioned, I think you said you played baseball. Is that right?
Correct. Yep. I played baseball in college as well.
Okay. So you know what it takes to have, let's see, passion, grit, and certainly self-discipline, because no one's forcing you to go to the batting cages on the weekends. I don't know. What position do you play?
I'm a pitcher.
Okay. Pitcher. So it's funny. I pitched softball in high school. So no one is forcing you to go practice your form on pitching, right? No one at all. You could not do it, and maybe you have great talent, or you could do it and get better. This industry is the same way. No one's forcing me to take more courses. I have 2 coaches doing different things for me, but no one's forcing me to do that. It's that self-discipline to know I want to get better, and I want to be better than I was yesterday. Even after that Zoom crash, I thought, okay, how could this is something from my military days. We used to do something called an after action review. And I know other industries do it. They might do like a debrief. I'm sure maybe Emily and NAIFA, you'll do it after a conference to say, hey, what went well? What didn't go well? What could we do better? Well, that Zoom crash, not a lot went well. Really nothing. I did it. That went well. But I thought, okay, what could I have done better? Oh, maybe the other gentleman who was on the call with me from Colorado, maybe if Kevin had the slides also, he could have picked up. Or I had sent the slides to the host, although he said it came through a funky, it was so many things went wrong. I even did try, but it came through like a funky, I don't know, .ptx or something. My point being is having that self-discipline, and then also kind of taking a look at myself saying, kind of messed up a little bit on that one. Maybe I could have done it differently in the future. I think being goal-oriented is super important. I think knowing, Grayson, you're an athlete, athletics and this industry go hand in hand, because there's going to be good days, there's going to be bad days, and then you're going to have the next day. And you just have to, do you play golf at all? Or, this would go to baseball too.
I try a little bit playing golf.
Okay, but me too. I used to, not anymore. I'm really bad. But in golf, the saying you hear is hit it and forget it. That last hit, or even like if you're up at bat, that last hit, maybe you struck out, you have to forget about that and then move on to the next one and start thinking about the next one. This industry is the same way. Maybe I didn't close that case, or that meeting didn't go quite as well. It's important to think about it and maybe do that debrief, but not kind of ruminate on it and let it impact you going forward. Like today, with Emily, I said, okay, you're going to run the slides because Zoom wasn't my friend. So I'm trying to, hit it and forget it, move on. And then the last is being coachable. I have coaches. I'm coachable, obviously. Sometimes people aren't. They might think they know everything. I still don't think I know everything. I mean, I know I'm a source of knowledge for many things, but I'm still always seeking more knowledge, different ways to do things, maybe different ways to do my introduction meetings or my closing meetings, and trying to, again, gain that knowledge, that perspective to get better. My husband has a coach for running. So we've done this distance. I have done some ultras up to 50K. He's done 100-mile races too so far. He has a coach for that because, again, we don't know everything. I mean, we're trying to get him better. He does have a day job. So this is his weekend thing that he does. But, again, we put some time and money into it for him to have a coach so he can get better at that because he enjoys doing that. So I think that's really important in this industry. And, Grayson, it sounds like, and anyone out there, again, who have been our athletes, I think it goes really well into it. Any thoughts, Grayson, on this, as far, even in baseball and your experience?
I definitely agree with the whole adaptability and how quick you have to change. I can think about that and like the world of pitching. If I make one bad pitch, not about that. I don't care if he's at home run. I got to go on to the next one. That's the path.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with that. And kind of one of the questions I had for you was when you were talking about going outside of your scope with that lady, how do you prepare for those conversations of being outside your scope? And how do you make sure that you at least have the basic information to help her out or help whoever it is
Mm-hmm.
out?
That's a great question. So sometimes it goes back to that integrity and honesty. If a client asks me, can you help me with this? Can you help me setting up a trust? Well, I'm not an attorney, so that's an easy one. No, but I can refer you to an attorney. Or so some of them, they are referrals. No, and being honest, saying, no, I don't help with that, but I will refer you to those professionals. In her case, I actually kind of, what I did was at one point, she's like, I'm so overwhelmed with everything I have to do. And I said, well, let's do this. Let's create a list of everything you need to do that's kind of in your brain right now. And I do this myself. It's called a brain dump. So I actually went through a list with her of all the things that she felt overwhelmed by. And some of them I couldn't help with. Like, I can't help her pay her garbage bill. I just can't. I mean, she has to write the check. She did find the garbage bill. She actually wrote the check yesterday. I did drop it in the mail for her because it was right there. But it's understanding, again, what I can help with. The credit card, I knew I could do because it was like, okay, I can get them on the phone with her there sitting next to me and have this conversation. So a lot of that is experience, knowing where I can go, where I can be an assistance, and where I really can't because it's outside my professional scope completely, or it's just not something I do. Another example is, her house. They've been in her house for 50 years. And I did connect her daughter with a list of some people that are professional organizers. I mean, I wasn't going to go to her house and clean it for her. So again, sometimes it's just experience. You start to learn what areas you can help and where you can go with people, if that makes sense.
Yes, it does. It seems like honesty kind of is what comes down.
Honesty, of course. I mean, I'm not going to tell them I can do something when I know I can't. I'm going to say, hey, I can't help you there, but let me find the professional that can, and I'll refer you to them. Okay. Why don't you go ahead, Emily, to the next slide. So this is some books that I love. These are some of my favorites. So 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It's a pretty thick one, but have a pen, maybe a highlighter handy, because I love that, to maybe take some notes. But Stephen Covey, most of us know him. It's a great book to kind of to dive into. Those next, I would say like the next handful are much quicker reads. Grit is the one I talked about by Angela Duckworth. She actually, studied grit. Like, what does it take for people to make it through things? Mindset's another great one. That's by Carol Dweck. And that's talking about growth versus fixed mindset. And the growth mindset is what we were just talking about. Baseball, hit it and forget it. Bad pitch, moving on. That's the growth mindset. Or how do I get better? When I talk about mistakes I've made or things that have gone wrong, I think, okay, how could that have been done differently? How can I get better next time, or try and prevent that, or try and get ahead of that? The fixed mindset, if I had a fixed mindset, I would have told Emily, I can't do today. I'm done. I would have just said, I'm out. I hate Zoom. I had a horrible experience. I'm done. That's fixed. So I love that book because it helps you think about your mindset and where you are. And when you're in the moment of a really bad situation, you can even think, oh my gosh, am I fixed or is this growth? You obviously want to be growth. Start with Why. Simon Sinek. He has a lot of TED Talks, YouTube videos. I would follow Simon Sinek. Love what he does and what he talks about. Starting with Why is starting with your passion. Why are you here? Why are you doing this? And sharing that with people. Rich Roll also has a podcast, and his book is called Finding Ultra. He was a collegiate athlete. He worked in finance, I think, became an addict, and then is now recovering. He's sober. He runs, ultra races, and he just, talks about his journey. But again, I think it's a lot about mindset. I really love that perspective. And then the last one there, I'm not sure if you've heard of David Goggins. The guy is an animal. He's fascinating. So he was in the military. He is one of probably the only people to have done the top most elite schools in various services. So Ranger School, SEAL School, Parajumper. I'm not sure if he graduated from Parajumper School. I can't remember. But what he talks about, again, is mindset. If you don't like cuss words, you're not going to like David Goggins, but he's a little rough around the edges, but I like him because he gets to the heart of things. He talks about things like going to the pain cave. I know exactly what he's talking about now when again, having done these ultra races, sometimes you get into like some dark spaces and you question yourself, like, why am I here? Not literally here in the world, but here doing this race. And how to push through that. And that for me has taken time now in my mid 40s to get to that place. But I think that applies to sometimes this industry. You're like, what am I doing? Like, this is hard. It's not easy. But then remembering, why do I do it? Who am I serving? Remembering the good days. I have notes. I have thank you notes that I've received from clients. I actually keep them on my desk. They just sent me these thank you notes, but I keep them on my desk. Maybe if I am having a bad day, to read those notes, to be like, oh, okay, here's my purpose. There are people who care about me. Most do, but kind of picking me up from those bad days. So love these reads. All of them are great. Go ahead, Emily, to the next slide. And then this one I think is really important. You do not, and you'll understand this analogy, I think, you do not want to be the cobbler with holes in your shoes. And here's what I say. I joked about not making a lot of money as a recruiter. When you start out in this industry, you don't make a lot of money, and you need to kind of understand that. And I think get your own house in order. I was fortunate with my husband. He had, his stable W-2 career. He was still, I believe he was still active duty when I started. He might've been in the reserves and are on his second career. But anyway, we were relying on his income when I first started out. So, we had keeping debt down, start saving now. Maybe, you're in Italy, maybe you guys are in school and it's hard to have a job now, but in the summers, I would be like a squirrel saving money. Just save as much as you can. And, have that as your starting salary, if you will. Maybe if you get into this industry and you're not making a lot, you have that money that you've saved. Tracking your money, I think, is huge. Even starting now, understanding how much my daughter's as I said, in high school, how much are you spending on Dutch Bros, or it's a coffee place here in Colorado, or, are you going to fast food a lot? Gas is one thing we all need, but what are you spending on these other maybe frivolous things that you don't need to spend on? So tracking that now, I think, is really important. That fourth bullet point here, and maybe you guys don't do this in college, but this is maybe for when you start out and then maybe you're getting married, have kiddos, getting your insurance when you're young and healthy. I had a pretty major change in my insurability. Actually, my second year in the business, I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis when I was 29. I was 30, but it started showing up when I was 29. It took about a year for that diagnosis. That had me go from elite plus best health class to like, I am now table rated. And I'm doing ultra races, which is kind of crazy, but my insurability changed dramatically. Thankfully, I had I had life insurance. I had disability. I actually had long-term care. That was kind of weird, but I told my husband I'm selling it. We should have some. So we got it when I was like 28. And that goes into that final point. Practice what you preach. When I am talking to clients, unless it's something out of my scope, like Grayson, for example, you're talking to special needs families, what you're recommending to them may not apply to you or most people. But if you're talking to your clients about life insurance, disability, etc., I think you should have it too, if it's right for your situation, right? You should be saving for your retirement. You're telling people to do that. And I do that. And we can retire really when we want because we've worked diligently from the beginning and doing all the things that I tell my clients to do. And it's, kind of the same way with like kids. Like it's not do as I say, not as I do. Do as I do because I'm doing this stuff. I think that's really, really important. So I think that's all on this slide. Emily, why don't you go ahead to the next one? So that kind of brings us to the end here. About 5 minutes left. I want to leave some time for any further discussion, any questions. There's my contact info, so you can connect with me on LinkedIn. You can go to Facebook. That's going to be like my family personal side of things. You'll see my races and all of that, but LinkedIn's my professional side. And then you can always email me, kowings@westbiltfinancial.com. So thank you for your time. Grayson, did you have any thoughts, questions, anything you'd like to chat about further?
Yeah, I have one kind of quick question.
Yeah.
So I'm looking in to get an internship next summer, September 2024. And while I'm looking to kind of, you talked about finding the right fit, would you recommend going more into like a larger firm or a smaller firm? I've heard a lot of different things, but the larger firms might have more interns your age, more opportunities for return offer, maybe more like class programs versus smaller firms. I've heard you kind of sometimes get more hands-on from the higher ups. So I've heard kind of different opinions on each. So I was wondering at yours.
It's going to depend. I mean, I've been in both. So New England was now I was an agent, I was 1099, but they were a very big firm. It was good when I started out because again, we had that structured training and that time with the other newbies. The downside of that is it was a behemoth as far as a producer when it comes to compliance and asking, can I do something? And the answer was usually no, unfortunately. We called them Dr. No, or I did anyway. So that was the downside. Where I am now as an independent, they don't really have training, but as far as getting to the higher ups and getting the yeses and having those conversations, super easy to do. I'll explain what I wrote a book, to be honest. I don't think that ever would have happened in MetLife. Here, I talked to the compliance officer. I showed him the manuscript. It's just different. Here's the advice I'll give you is I don't think it's right or wrong to go big or small. I would say liking the people that you're going to work for and work with. I wouldn't go big if you didn't like the people, right? If you didn't get a good vibe for them. But if you find a small firm and maybe the owner says, hey, I do want to, train you. I want you to come into the meetings with you. So it's hard for me to answer black and white on either one, say go big or go small, because they have their advantages and disadvantages. I would say sometimes it might come down to a feel thing. I mean, that's what it was for me with New England. Like I could have gone with the Merrill, but they were only excited, I think, really because I was a West Point grad, because they had a Naval Academy grad and Air Force Academy grad. I'm like, what am I, just a box you're ticking? Like that didn't excite me. But New England, they had the training. I liked the people. It was ticking all the boxes that I was looking for.
Okay.
So sorry to be a little vague in the answer, but I think it depends, honestly.
No, it was helpful. The information was very helpful.
Yeah, there's good and bad to both sides of it. We're small. It's me, my business partner, and 2 assistants. And we've had some juniors in the past, and you're kind of you're wearing a lot of hats. I even wear a lot of hats as an owner versus, again, larger, you might be in just your box. Like, here is your job, Grayson. You're going to do financial plans and that's it. And maybe you would want to do that. Or with something smaller, you might be like, oh, it's kind of cool that I can do other things and go into other areas and maybe own different jobs. Maybe I can create my own. I don't know. So I think some of that comes through self-reflection as well to understand what you want.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was about to say is, it's really, really looking at what you want to get out of it. And, when you're talking to these different agencies and doing kind of your homework on them and learning about them and doing that self-reflection to say, okay, is this a good fit for me? Does this help me to accomplish the goals that I want to achieve with this internship? If you want to go big and you want to just have just a very general overview, that's great. Like that's a great place to be. But like Kathleen said, if you want to go and get a little more in depth or, dabble into different things and, maybe smaller is better. So it really is kind of a self-reflection on what you want to get out of, it's a mutual relationship, with
Right.
What you want to get out of it and what they want to get out of you. So
yeah, I agree. And
Awesome.
At the end of the day, you want to start somewhere though. I mean, I talked to my daughter about this, like, okay, you have all these decisions, just start moving in a direction, maybe you interview a handful of companies, you narrow it down to 4, move in a direction. You could always change later. It's not the end of the world. I mean, it might be painful, but it's better to make a decision and move in a direction than to get kind of stuck and have that analysis paralysis where you're like, oh, I don't know what to do. Just move. And then you can always change later, which we did. I was started in New England and then my partner and I moved to an independent broker dealer. And I don't really want to do that again. It's a heavy lift, but we made that change because it was the right point in time for us to do it.
Grayson, when you're back in the States, remind me where you are at.
Newtown Square, Pennsylvania. So right outside Philadelphia.
Okay. Yep. Great. Yeah. And we've got the Pennsylvania chapter is actually very strong. That's a very strong chapter. So when you get back, I would encourage, Kathleen and I know some people in that area that
we do.
Definitely get you connected with, and make sure that when you come back home that you are engaged and making those connections, or even doing them virtually from Italy. So
awesome.
Yeah,
thank you.
Sure.
I appreciate you guys both taking the time. Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome, Grayson. Emily, anything else? I mean, we're at the top of the hour here, a little past it.
Yep. Nope. Just want to thank everyone, whether you're watching live or watching virtually. Next week, we actually have a really great session. So we've got, it's going to be no PowerPoint presentation, just all dialogue and question and answers, with different people in their different roles within the industry. So, we've got some home office people, we've got some advisors, just different kind of scopes and how they got into the industry. It's usually a pretty engaging session. So definitely one that you should try and catch live if your schedule allows, and look forward to seeing you next week.
Okay. Thanks. Hey, Grayson, have a great ciao. Is that what they say in Italy? Ciao.
Yeah, yep, correct.
Okay, good. It's funny. My husband's in Poland right now. This week he's going to be in Poland, Germany, and the UK. So he called me. I'm like, I don't know what they say in Poland. Hello. I'm not sure what, but ciao. I have that one.
Yep. Ciao's an easy one.
Okay. Well, thanks. Hey, thanks again, Emily.
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.